Okay, everyone, I have turned the recording on. We'll wait a few more minutes to get started, but it looks like we have both Debbie and Renee. So thank you both for being here, but we'll give another minute. Usually we have a few more than this, and I think this topic is probably pretty popular. So, but the recording has started, just so you guys know.
Wonderful. Thank you, Wendy. We appreciate that. We're
So you're saying we shouldn't talk dirt on Debbie now because it's being recorded?
should have got all that out before she popped on.
That's right. I was trying.
You never can tell, right?
Mhm.
So I'm recovering a little bit from whatever the funk of the week is that's going around during summertime. So I may sound a little raspy at times, but I'm doing okay. If I have to mute for a second, you'll know that's why. So I'm trying to pull it together. How's business, everybody? Busy? Summertime.
Not quite yet. I mean, we're couple days out, but not like 8 to 10 days or anything like that, so.
Do you anticipate that, Dave? 8 to 10 days?
I did last year, and it never
Did you?
really came last year either. It was just enough to stay above water, but not anything to fill the coffers up with gold coins or anything. So
Yes. I always say feast or famine, and we're not happy with either one, I think, sometimes.
for sure.
Totally agree.
Ooh, love that Maytag man down. He's in my corner. I don't know if he's in everybody's corner.
Oh, lonely.
Yeah, that was one of the original. He played Mr. Carlson on WKRP in Cincinnati. For those of us who are old as dirt.
That's right. Yeah, I met Gordon quite a few times, so
Yeah.
As old as dirt.
All right. Well, let's get the conversation rolling. Those who can join later, can always watch the recording and kind of benefit from all of it, but I don't want to delay it anymore. So Debbie, this was her idea and she roped me in, and I have the deplorable kind of personality that sort of takes the lead in things most of the time. But Debbie, I will let you get things kicked off, please.
Okay, I just want to say I'm Debbie Clintworth. I own Sloan Appliance and I own D3S Service. So I'm in Texas, Oklahoma, South Carolina, for those of you that don't know me. Anyway, I want to thank y'all for being here. We first started talking, I was talking to Wendy and I was talking to Renee about, I've done a class at ASTI before about how I was stolen from. And the person that stole from me is actually still in prison. So I was sharing how I got stolen from, but now the criminals and the people that are committing all of this fraud are getting smarter. And we were talking about it because I went to another conference in March and somebody stole $10,000 from me and I had no idea how they stole. And they were just getting money from my debit card and I couldn't figure out where this person was coming from. And then I start talking to Renee and she was like, oh, I know how. So I thought, you know what, we need to share this. I was in Las Vegas for a conference and I did not use my personal debit card at all, anywhere. When I got home from Las Vegas, I had $10,000 deducted from my bank account. And I was like, what is going on? And then I was telling Renee and she goes, oh, well, we bought these. Renee, do you have it? A little card. I haven't bought it yet, but I'm going to. Apparently, there are some scanners they can put in a doorway that scan your card in your purse or your wallet as you walk through it. And I did not
they walk
know
around
that.
the street too. It's not confined to a doorway, but it's an RFID and it's a radio frequency identification. And I'm sorry I interrupted you, but
No, it's good.
It's a handheld device. And I happened to see it before we went to Vegas. I saw it on some, I don't know. I was probably scrolling, to be honest, on my phone. And I found it and it said, you know, be aware that this is going on, and Las Vegas was a hotbed for it. And what they do is they hold the device and they walk on the street and just kind of, they keep it close to their body, but they can scan it through your purse, through your wallet, through your pants, in your jacket, wherever it is. So it connects to the radio frequency, reads that data, stores it, and then they go back and use it to commit fraud. So one of the things I did, and I did this, honest to God, I did it the day before we were leaving, because this was how relevant it was to me. And I saw it on Amazon and I bought it. I'll hold it up to the camera if you guys can see it a little better. And it came in a pack of 2. And so I ordered 2 packs, one for myself, one for my husband, and they came in the day we were getting on the plane. And he said to me, what are you doing ordering something the day we're leaving? And I said, well, we need to take it with us. And he said, well, hope it'll be here. Luckily it was. And so what you basically do is you put one card on one side of your wallet and one on the other. And the theory is that they block the signal from being received. So this card and the other one together sort of sandwich your cards and block it. Anybody heard of this before? Got one nod. So
Yeah,
I
and-
had kind of heard of it, but not looked into it a lot, and picked it up, did exactly what they said, and they give you directions. A lot of different people are making these now, so if you are interested in looking into it, check different ones. But they will, and yeah, Bobby's saying you can buy wallets that are that way. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've seen those too.
Right now, he's giving a very bizarre speech.
Okay, we got muted. The gist is that you can test it, okay? Because when you buy something and you think, well, I don't know if it does work or if it doesn't work, and the only way to find out is to have 10 grand stolen from me, and then I know it doesn't work. Right? So it gives directions on how you can test it using one of your own cards. So just as a precaution, we did this. Didn't think twice about it. Figured if it works, it works. If it doesn't, I'm no lighter for the spending of the money for these two sets of cards. And then I came back and as Debbie was saying, we were having that conversation. She said, I don't know how they got at it. And I said, they probably just walked by you on the street with one of those readers and grabbed that information. So a lot of very new and sophisticated fraud going on out there, but also a lot of really dumb and lousy fraud going on. And, you know, the conversation that Debbie and I had, and we've had this a couple of times, is that these people who are using a telephone fraud, which is so popular right now, and texting and also calling, they're preying on your fear and anybody's fear. And I've had that happen to me. And I don't consider myself a particularly stupid person, but it gave me cause to kind of pause for a minute. And we've all seen the commercial. Have you seen the commercial where the lady gets the phone call and they say your electric bill hasn't been paid? And she says, I thought I paid that. We all have that moment of pause because we want to know that everything is right in our worlds. And when somebody calls and says, hey, something's not perfect, you question it immediately. Even if you know you did it, you question it. And that's their leverage. So we wanted to open up discussion today, not only to share with you things that have happened, both to me, to people in my business, in my company, but also to hear your experiences too and what you did about it. because I think it's a very important subject. As business owners, we're very susceptible to having people take advantage of certain situations. But as individuals, I think that is tenfold. I have an aging parent. I try to watch his stuff really carefully because he gets, quite honestly, he gets garbage all the time trying to get him to do stuff. And I'm so concerned that he will, when I'm not watching. So another thing I did for myself, and I'm trying to get it on Dad's phone, is I downloaded Verizon call filter. Have any of you heard of this, for those of you who use Verizon? So the call filter says that it will reduce or eliminate your spam calls. Now, I did it about a week ago. I will say I have seen a reduction, significant. I was getting, I kid you not, probably 7 a day some days, 7, 8 calls. Anybody else? 7, 8 spam calls a day? And it's just ridiculous. To be honest with you, I just don't have the time to deal with all that. It has reduced it significantly. And it's a free feature that Verizon offers if you're on Verizon. And it filters out those calls for you automatically. So is anybody else doing anything like that? I know there's a lot of apps out there that claim to filter your calls and filter out spam. Is anybody using one currently other than that one? No? Okay. It's been very good for me so far. And as time goes on, it'll tell if it's really going to work. Jack?
Yeah, I don't use a different one, but I will say, just coming from the telecommunication side, sometimes when you do those blockers, and it's not a bad thing. Sometimes they're so annoying, and there's so many of them. And now
Mhm.
it's moved even more to texting. Although texting, they're really cracking down on that stuff. What you have to realize is, if a legitimate business has been marked as spam and it's coming through as potential spam, those are also getting blocked. So just be aware,
Yes.
if you're expecting something from a national company, there's a good chance that that call or that text message won't come through when you're using those blockers.
That's true. And they do disclaim that in a couple of different ways when you add it to your phone. And one of the things you can do to combat that is they allow you to mark your contacts that are allowed. And so I went through all my contacts and marked. But you're right, Jack. I mean, if it's somebody you're trying to set up a new business with or something, and you're waiting for that call, they tell you up front that it might delete that call or just not allow it to come through. And they do profess to be able to block some of the texting. I have seen less, but it could be just coincidental.
I think that the texting piece, Renee, has more to do with the crackdown on the back end.
Good.
Meaning, what 2-3 years ago, we could register a texting number for a company in 5 minutes.
Right.
And now it takes up to 2 weeks, and we have to get EIN numbers. We cannot do it for sole proprietorships. We can't do it for, they have just really cracked all that stuff down. And it's all to create what's called a digital reputation. So the company now has this digital reputation, and if you have a low score in that reputation, it basically automatically blocks those numbers on any of that. The carriers, everything else.
Yeah. Yeah. Bobby had a couple of comments about the credit card skimmers that are attached. And we've seen these, one of our news channels did a report on those where they attach to the gas station scanners and stuff like that, and they capture your information. So, and scanning QR codes, public ones, things like that. I'm kind of funny about what I scan anyway. I just think that so much of this has turned us into a nation of people who doubt. We doubt everything. You know what I mean? Which is not 100% wrong. because, you know, when you start assuming everything is okay, that's when you go wrong, right? I will share with you, and then I want to open it up for other conversation, but I'll share with you a few years back, um, six years to be more accurate. And Scott, you'll relate to this. We were moving our business to a new building. We had bought a new building. And it happened to be in another county. So it was literally miles away, a few miles away, but it was over the border. So we were in another county. And so I had to move all of my utilities had to go to a different utility carrier, right? And so maybe 3 weeks into this whole process, I'm running errands and I get a call from one of my office managers, and she says, hey, the electric company just called and they said that they didn't get your payment and they're going to cut our lights off here at the office. And because of what I had been doing, moving everything, putting deposits down, making sure it changed, applying for new service, this kind of stuff, it peaked with me. You know, I was like immediately focused on what happened. You know, I thought I had this straight. What happened? And so I got the number and called them back because I'm thinking this is the electric company. That was my first mistake. And then I got into a conversation with a guy who kept insisting that they hadn't got the payment. They hadn't got the payment. They hadn't got the payment. I needed to pay them. I needed to pay them now. He was going to turn it off. But the more it escalated, the more I started thinking, this is not how the electric company deals with stuff. Why is, you know, I'm thinking I'm handling this because it was an oversight on my part or something went wrong. But the more I talked to him, the more he escalated his threat. And I thought, why would the electric company be threatening me? That's completely and totally. So I ended up, by this time in my errands, I was at my bank and I was sitting in one of my banker's offices because she was a friend of mine. And I said, I just can't believe. And then it hit me. This isn't the electric company at all. You're worried about something because you've been doing stuff and he's taking advantage of that moment. And it escalated to they were going to send the police over to shut my power off. Well, first of all, tell me another lie, right? The police don't bother. I mean, when have you seen the police come out to shut somebody's utilities off? It doesn't work that way. And so at that point, I knew he was a scammer. But he wasted 30 minutes of my time, an hour maybe, because I was trying so hard to make sure that this move we were going through, that something hadn't been dropped, something hadn't been, you know, disrupted or made a mistake of. So they pick that moment and they use your fear and your, you know, those little moments you have where you're trying to make sure everything in your world went perfectly, and they capitalize on it. So I told him when he threatened the police, I said, please call the police. As a matter of fact, have them meet me at my office and, you know, we'll talk about it. Please call them. As a matter of fact, I'll call them. Let me call them. I'll call them and tell them to meet me over there. Because I knew he was a scammer at that point. He's still driving it home though. He was still threatening. And, you know, eventually we just parted ways. And of course it was just garbage. It was just garbage. But even somebody who considered herself pretty savvy had that moment where I was trying to marry two things. Me moving a bunch of utilities and a bunch of stuff and making sure that was all right, with this person saying you did something wrong. Right? And there I was, just like everybody else. So now I'm very, very, very cautious. So I know you guys have had those moments too. One of the things I do now, because of that situation, first of all, I made my office staff aware that if anybody called, don't give them any information, take the number and give it to me and deny. I reverse lookup. How many people reverse look up a number before you call it back? I'm doing it. Sometimes I'll do it if I'm on the phone with the person, like if they call me and I'm actually talking with them and because people will call and say, how many times did you answer this call for the person who's calling from your long distance provider? I used to get that one 3 times a week. Drove me nuts. So I would reverse lookup. So now I reverse lookup every number that I'm unsure about. If you have the bank call you, which I know Debbie had a situation recently. Debbie, you want to share that?
Well, with that $10,000 that was stolen, of course, when I got back from Las Vegas, I went straight up to my bank and told them that these are all fraudulent charges. And it's very funny that they were just doing 99.99 again and again and again and again. And I said to the bank, why are you allowing this? Anyway, we got a new card sent to me. The minute I got the new card and the people knew that they couldn't steal from me, I got a phone call from someone and they said, hey, this is Wells Fargo and we're with the fraud department. Well, it made me it's just my gut instinct. It made me very uneasy to talk to them about my banking information. And I said, I'm going to go back up. I was just at the office. I'm going to go back up there. I'm going to talk to the same person I spoke with. I don't feel comfortable discussing it over the phone. I went back up to the bank and said, somebody from the fraud department is trying to call to resolve this issue. And they said, no, that's not us. And we're not calling you. So I just wanted everyone else to experience what I have because, knowledge is definitely power. So they're getting very sneaky. He was very professional, handled it just like you would expect the bank to handle it on the phone. He knew a lot about me. I don't even know how, but it was definitely not the fraud department with Wells Fargo or anyone that works. It was definitely not on my account. So they keep records of that. So I just wanted to bring that up because I know that is happening. And then with the texting, I do want to emphasize this. We're trying to get our customers to feel comfortable with texting our appointments right now. And yet I got a text on Sunday. I could only deal with it on Sunday. And the state of Texas was telling me I had a ticket that I never got. And that if I didn't pay it, then they were going to come after me and, suspend my license for 30 days and do all of these things. And like, Renee was saying, it was a scare tactic to make me probably press on their link so I could investigate it. Of course, I didn't, but it's just knowledge is power right now. And we need to know how to decipher a fraudulent charge, or a fraudulent text from a real one. And that's getting harder. And hopefully, Jack, maybe you can give us a little insight on how to look out for that. I'm going to put you on the spot.
Why are you blaming me? We always take we always take the approach, both in email, text, everything, is we never click on a link, period, company wise. That way it prevents something getting downloaded by accident into one of our systems, which then can affect everything. And we have to be really proactive in all of that. One of the frustrations that I have, we have a very expensive compliance company for our telecommunications stuff. And so they go in and they register everything for us and they do all of our monthly filings, etc. When they do that, it makes all of your information public. So all of a sudden I'm getting now email blasts from different companies saying, hey, you haven't filed your annual report yet. Click here to file your annual report, and a fee of $495 will be charged to your account for this filing. We don't need to do any of that. Okay. So we have to watch all of that stuff. We never click those links because that's validating a couple of things: your information that you're giving the customer, or your not customer, your the scammer. So this is a legitimate email or text or phone number or whatever. As soon as you respond, they know it's valid. And then number two, if it's going to a website or something else, it can download malware into whatever device you're using to do it. So we just don't do it. If we aren't 110% confident, we'll even respond, hey, Debbie, you sent us a link. Was that legit? Before we will click on it.
Yeah.
So just verification. I think you guys are doing the right things. On the other hand, I really want to call Todd out because he's figured out how to get the scammers to give him their credit card.
What? Do
I
explain
think that
that
was
one.
Todd. Wasn't that you, Todd? He may not be at his computer right there, but
He had some good, he said, fraud prevention practices that they use at their company is no debit cards on their business account. I do that also. I've never had a debit card on my business account, but I will tell you that came more out of my years working in banking than it did anything else. When I was in banking, I did intake on fraud. I didn't work for the fraud department, but the bank was the first line of defense against that kind of stuff. And I spent years as a teller, and then I moved over into customer service. So I saw a lot of different kind of very, very, very basic fraud. Who's familiar with check washing? Do you know what check washing is? I mean, it's exactly what it sounds like. They take a check and they wash it until they can rewrite it. And I've seen those. They've been presented to me, you know, in my role as a bank teller. Usually you can tell them apart because they're a little bit more frail. They've been abused a little bit because they want to get that ink off of there. The easiest check fraud is to take your check and try to manipulate what you've written it to. I was telling Debbie, I took one day as a bank teller, and our power company in North Carolina, well, for most of the state is CP&L, Carolina Power and Light. But as consumers, as many of you would, we wrote it to CP&L. And this person's check had been stolen from their mailbox. And the person had attempted to write in a name, you know, starting with C, middle initial P, last name began with L. Tried really hard, but it was very, very obvious to me that the check had been altered. And so when he handed it to me, I turned it down and I said, I can't cash this check. I can't use this check. It's been altered. He knew he did it. I was standing in front of the person who was committing fraud. But as a bank teller, I couldn't make him stay. I could call the police, but I couldn't make him stay in the bank until they arrived, and he wasn't gonna. So catching that person, even when they're standing right in front of you, is really, really difficult. I can secure the check and keep it and not give it back to him, which is what I was told to do. But you know, my best effort is that maybe they got caught on camera and can be identified later. We got cash that way too. Anybody had some counterfeit cash come through your hand before? Nobody?
Knock on wood.
Yeah. I've seen plenty of counterfeit bills, and guess what happens when you get a counterfeit bill and you take it to the bank? They seize it. And you don't get that money back. That's done. So I've seized, $300 from a guy one time, and his first question, and it would have been mine too, where am I going to get my money from? And I said, it's counterfeit. I've got to confiscate it. It's federal law. So he was out $300.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What is cash?
Oh, I'm sorry, Jack. It's the government still prints occasionally, and you might see people, most of in our industry, they carry it in a roll. It's like it's rolled up. But yeah, there's people out there.
Is that how Scott Clintworth does it?
Does he carry it in a roll, Debbie, in his pocket?
That's because she only lets him have one bill at a time.
One.
Hey, she's confiscating money at her house too, I see. But those are the things you recognize those. We don't think about it as consumers. I very seldom have somebody pay me in cash, but it does happen. I don't think my technicians would know if they got past a counterfeit bill. Do you?
No.
We never talk about it.
Yeah.
We never present it to them, And the reality is most people who are passing a counterfeit bill didn't create the bill. They received it. and they don't know it's counterfeit either. Who's putting your bills in your actual mailbox at the street anymore? Is anybody doing that anymore? Yeah, don't do that. That's what I used to tell everybody at the bank. Take it to the post office and put it in the post office box. That is the easiest way to prevent somebody from stealing your check. George, you had your hand up. Mr. Dempsey.
I'm sorry if I did. It shouldn't have been.
Oh, you just waving? Did you have an instance where you had a fraudulent situation that you wanted to share, or no?
No, but
Okay.
mine unfortunately aren't fraudulent. I found out my son uses my card for Robux on on the phone, and so now like he spent like $6,000 in Roblox or Robux or whatever the heck the name is, and it wasn't fraud. It was my son just doing what he did, and so I went back. I had to fight the Roblox game or whatever, and that was a lot of fun.
I'm sure.
But no, it
Well,
wasn't fraud.
if it makes you feel any, I'm gonna say worse, because I don't know how you can feel better about stuff like that when it happens to you, especially when it's somebody in your family. Majority of fraud that I saw, and I'm not saying today because things are different, but the majority of fraud that I saw when I worked at the bank, perpetrated by a family member. Almost every time. It was the nephew or the grandson or the sister, who, maybe they were recovering from something, gave them their card and said, go get groceries for me. And they did it. Now they have that PIN code and they use it. And the person never discovered it until they get their statement. And a lot of times I was the person that helped them put those pieces together. And there's no more feeling of uncomfortable than to stand in front of a grandmother and have her realize that her grandson just took her for $500, or whatever. So, just bear those things in mind, because business, we run into that all the time, don't we? We run into times where somebody's using somebody else's card, or they've got this card, and that occurs in our business too. We just had a company busted here in town because one of their employees was saving credit card numbers and using them. So you gotta be diligent about that stuff. Does anybody have anything in place that they would like to share that kind of, keeps that in check at their own business, or something they've implemented?
So I don't have anything in place, and I just wanted to share another one that just came to mind. So we had just gotten back from vacation in Florida, and we live in Missouri, so like tolls to us are foreign. We, not really familiar with it. So my wife got a text from what looked like the Florida Department of Revenue or Transportation or whatever it is.
Yep.
And said, hey, pay this toll, whatnot. And I mean, it looked official. So she paid it, and then not even 12 hours later, she got a notification that her card had been saved to an Apple Wallet.
Yeah.
And so then we went and got, of course, you get new card numbers, but whenever you get a new card number, if you get a new card, it automatically updates your Apple Wallet. So whoever had our card automatically had our new card.
Yeah.
And so it was a mess trying to get that all worked out. It took, a couple of weeks of back and forth with Apple and our credit card company, and like trying to get everything back in place. But that's another thing too, is like, it's not always just changing your card or getting new cards. If people have your stuff saved to their wallets or their Apple wallets or whatever it is, you have to go through, it's a whole nother set of processes that you have to go through to get that canceled and taken care of.
And Apple's not easy to deal with either, from my experience. And I just had a simple thing. I had my phone locked me out. We were on vacation and my phone locked me out, and I couldn't get back into it at all. It was, one of those situations where you've tried it way too many times and they don't love you anymore. And and they didn't love me even when I got back. It was locked out pretty much good. So I know that can be challenging, but yet that is a very, very popular scam. And it has been working. I don't know if it's working nationwide. I know it's been working the East Coast for some time now. I've gotten probably 2 or 3, and I've just taken to ignoring them. I ignore them and I delete them because as somebody who travels up and down this coast, I was, I understood that if I went through a toll that didn't, because some in Florida don't, they just don't have a place where you pay them. They scan your plate and then they send you a bill. And I knew that's how it worked. But there again, they're hoping that people will have a doubt. Oh, well, we were just there. My situation. Oh, well, I did just move my electricity. Okay, maybe I did do something wrong. Very, very, very common. A few years back, and I'll share this one with you too, because this was one of my most difficult, and it wasn't me, but one of my technicians called me, and he was on the road, and he said, "Hey, I need to go and take care of some stuff right now." And of course, I'm like, "What are you talking about?" "Well, I got a call from the IRS." I said, "You got a call from the IRS?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "And you have to go take care of it right now?" And he said, "Yeah, they told me they'd been by my house and I wasn't home. They had written me letters and I haven't received them. And now I need to go and pay them today." I said, "Okay, hold up. You ever get a letter?" He said, "No." I said, "Do you owe back taxes?" He said, "I don't think so." I said, "Okay, then why are we doing this?" He said, "Well, they said that, they're going to issue a warrant for my arrest." I said, "Okay, no, no, no. That's not how this works." And so I had to talk to him. And it took me probably 45 minutes to talk him off the ledge. And I don't consider him a naive person, but this man was going to go, and you're going to laugh, to the Best Buy parking lot as instructed by the IRS and buy some gift cards to pay them with. And I said, "No, sir, you're not. This is a scam." He said, "Well, they told me, they knew things." I said, "I don't care what they knew. Unless you're Willie Nelson, they're not coming to your house to collect on your IRS. All right? That's not happening. You're not that important, baby. I hate to break it to you."
You know, Renee, that's
So-
that's a good point. I mean, as owners, you actually have these employees that in a sense you're responsible for,
Uh-huh.
or at least trying to help. And I mean, obviously they're helping you because
Sure.
growing the business and everything. But in a sense, you can have younger employees who
Mhm.
are just kind of naive about certain things that in a way I kind of feel it's my responsibility to at least say something, or at least have, when you have tech meetings, to bring certain things up and to kind of like, I don't know, be a dad or a parent or something to some of these guys, because they really don't know. And the last thing we want are employees who have been scammed and lose money because now they're hurting, and who knows what their attitude's going to change because now they don't have what they need to pay their bills, and it just affects a positive work environment, and now they're all depressed and whatnot. So I think it's really cool that people take the time out to help these individuals like what you did. You kind of went above and beyond, because you could have let it go. You could have said, "Hey,
Yeah.
let him learn for himself." What better way to learn something than to go through that kind of scenario?
Well,
So-
I always say nothing is a better teacher than life. And sometimes life will really beat you up to make you learn a lesson. But, some of this stuff, it's just, and I maybe I have a more blasé look at certain things, but I don't think that the IRS can be a pain, as we all know, but they're not sending somebody to your house to collect on. I said to him, I said, do you know how many people in this country right now owe some money to the IRS? Do you think they're sending out an agent every time somebody doesn't pay their bill? That's not happening, honey. I said, you got to think this thing through. And eventually I did get him off the ledge. But this man was going to go and do the second dumb part of this, which I said, do you think the IRS gets paid in Best Buy gift cards? Think that through now, because that's not a thing, right? But when you're scared because somebody says, we'll issue a warrant for your arrest, that gives you pause, especially if you're not savvy, you're not a little bit savvy, you know?
So I'm going to share Debbie shared with me the check that,
I think I
you want me
really
to show
do
what
want
happened?
I want everyone to see
Yeah.
how I was stolen from. This is the person who is now in prison. Um, you can see this check. She took a picture of it. It went straight into her account and it was made out to D3S service. She wrote her name over it and took a picture on it and it made it through their bank. So once it was deposited, it no longer had anything to do with me. It was between the person who wrote the check and who it was deposited to. So I never got the money back and couldn't do anything about it. So now I use iWallet because I want that check deposited immediately while I'm in the home. There are other apps just like that you can use. You don't have to use that one. But when I saw iWallet, I went straight to it. But I want you to see the progression. She put her middle name, which was Middlestead, on here. And she tried to write Paula over the D3S because she didn't know what they would take and what they wouldn't. If you'll scroll down, you can see the progression. Then the next check was her payroll, but keep going, a couple of them. Then you'll see she wrote her actual name, which was Paula Fanning, and that was for just a trip charge. She wrote it right over D3S. You can go, yeah, keep going. The next one, this one. She wrote Paula Fanning right over D3S, which you can see behind it, and they took it. It cleared her bank. So these are actual from the investigator that prosecuted her. This is the documentation from that. Then on that third check down, it's actually made out to D3S. She took a picture and it went right into her bank account. Because of AI, the only thing they are looking for is the dollar amount, that it's written out as the dollar amount and somebody has signed the check. They don't care who it's made out to. And I know that if I brought that check to the bank, if it's not made out to my company, they won't even take it. But when you're taking a picture and doing more of a remote deposit, then all bets are off, and they know they have a problem. This was all insured by whoever wrote this, but I got no money for this at all. The only thing we got for this was that she went to prison. But I just want everybody to see that the way she was able to get around it and not let me see this was within Rossware. She knew the checks were coming in and she moved the deposit date to 3 days ago. And then, so they were never on my report. And then after 24 hours, she moved them to 3 years ago. So they would never show up in my reports. And that's how I missed it for a while. And then I just noticed we're just not making the kind of money that we should be making. And I started running the reports at like 5 o'clock as soon as, I was about to leave the office so that I could start comparing. And that's how we were able to detect it. And the minute I found out, we escorted her off the property and were able to, get somebody to investigate that we were being stolen from. And I was able to show some of this proof. So we had customers that actually sent us the check, and that's how we found it too. We started putting 2 and 2 together. So I just want everyone to see that the systems that are in place are good, but these crooks are getting smarter and smarter on a regular basis, and just, print your reports all the time. I did talk to Glade, so this happened a couple years ago, as you can see in 2020 from these checks. But he made it so that now you can't ever go behind. You can only go forward with the deposits on the day of, or you can't do past. Like she was able to change the date because I told him, I said, why would I ever make a deposit in the past? And he goes, well, you're making a good point. So he made it so that you can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
But I just wanted everyone to see that anyone can take a picture of a check and have it deposited into their account remotely,
Mhm.
so that they're, you know, it can be insured through FDIC on some of this, but whew, right now it's a pain, and I don't want y'all to go through what I went through. So
Yeah.
I wanted to share that. Thank you, Wendy, for screen sharing that.
Can we bring
Yeah,
that
it's-
back up and show that payroll check so I can get the account information off it? Just
That's not
ask-
even active anymore, honestly.
ask
As
me
an
for a friend.
example of how this happens, so yeah, we have become a society that's very, very dependent on the ease with which we communicate. It's got to be easy. It's got to be quick, and that's how we transfer money as well. So with that comes a certain amount of compromise, and so once you recognize those places where you might be compromised. I used to have people at the bank come up to me all the time who had lost their ATM receipt through the parking lot. You know, the wind took it, and they would come in panicked that their information was now blowing across the parking lot. Okay. And I would say, well, first of all, your full account number is not on the receipt. If you've ever looked at it, obviously they had never really examined the receipt because it's not. And I said, second of all, you do realize every check you write has your full account number, your name, your address, your phone number, all of that on it, right? And they would get this blank look like, huh. And that was the first time they realized that all of their information they were handing to people every time they wrote a check. And so that kind of settled my receipts blowing across the parking lot thing. They weren't worried about that anymore. But the reality is, checks are a really good way. They have your name, your address, sometimes your phone number, if you have that put on the check, right? I've even seen people, believe it or not, put their social on the check. Okay. Account number, routing number. I mean, you just gave them a template, and
Well,
that's what it is. So, you know, we have to be mindful of these things. Who uses online banking where you have your checks bill paid through the bank instead of writing a check? Who does that? Few of you. Okay, so you may know this already, but if you don't, I'll tell you. When they issue a check to pay a bill that you've asked them to pay for you out of your account, it's not your account number on the bottom of that check. So you're protected. That's one layer of protection. That's an account number that they generate, and it doesn't go back to you. So that's one layer of protection you can add to yourself. Plus, you're not putting a check in the mailbox, you know, if that's something you're doing. I haven't put checks in mailbox for years. And, you know, I always take them to the post office if I have to write a check. But think about things in terms of what information you're allowing without really realizing you're allowing that information. There's a scam going around right now where, and you guys have heard of this, where you answer the phone and they say, hey, can you hear me? And you say, yes, I can hear you. They record the yes, and they use it to force charges on your account as an exception of charges. She said yes, she would accept the charges. So apparently there are some phone accounts that you might have that will allow you to charge things through your phone account. I didn't know this existed. And then it shows up on your phone bill. They say, don't, of course, say yes when somebody says, can you hear me? I don't know about you, but I mean, just for a reaction, I found it hard not to respond with yes when somebody asked me, do you hear me or can you hear me? I was trying, they say, always respond with, I can hear you. But even when I tried to do that, I said, yeah, I can hear you. And I said, darn it, I did it again. I don't know how to stop myself. So the best line of defense is if you see a number you don't recognize on your phone, don't answer it. And that's advice coming from people who are studying fraud right now. Don't answer the phone if you don't recognize the number. I don't, but it's hard when you run a business, is it not? Because somebody may be calling you that their number is not in your contacts and you have to answer that phone. So just be mindful of these things. Realize how the government agencies work. You know, they're not necessarily coming to your house to tell you that you owe for a parking ticket. They don't arrest people necessarily for parking tickets unless it's gotten really out of hand. But for one parking ticket, you're probably not going to jail. That's not a thing, you know. And I never ever will communicate with somebody who's unsolicited call. You know, I get calls sometimes and people say, we're from your insurance company. And if I don't recognize the person, because as many of you do, I deal with certain people in my insurance company. I don't deal with random people in the insurance company. I have a couple of contacts. If it's not them, I don't talk to them. And I'll call my contact and say, hey, I just got a call. Is this a real thing? Is it legit? If I get emails from a government agency or identifying itself as a government agency now, I call my accountant and I forward it to them and say, will you look at this and tell me if this looks legit? If not, I don't deal with it. So just as a precaution, we have to retrain ourselves of how to look at things that are presented to us and how we respond to stuff now. Likewise, we have to be careful. I very seldom write checks anymore. Anybody still writing a bunch of checks all the time? It's so much easier. Like I said, there's that piece that comes with ease of access and communication comes, you know, other things too. But it's so much easier just to allow my bank to handle that. And then they assume the responsibility if something goes wrong. So just bear that in mind. You know, I've seen a lot of different things over the years, a lot of different fraud. And one of the things I told my employee who was going through that and thinking that the IRS was after him is I said this. I said, if the IRS has a legitimate claim, they will go into your bank account and remove that money. They don't need to come to your house. They don't want to arrest you. That doesn't pay the bill. They will go into your account and they will take that money out. I've seen it done, and it's ugly when that person realizes that government garnishment has come out of their account. But they don't have to do that. You know, they don't have to do all the pomp and circumstance. We're mailing you, you know, 4 or 5 notices and things like that. They just go and take it, and it's done. And if you don't have the money in your account, they'll overdraw you. They'll overdraft your account. And every dime you put in there from then on goes straight to them. It's ugly when you see that kind of stuff going on. But, you know, that's how they operate. They're not coming to your house to arrest you. And this is what I told him. And I think I finally got him off the ledge with it. And he didn't do anything else. But just know that that's how they operate. They operate on using your fear as leverage, using your doubt as leverage. And, you know, they're preying on good people. Good people want to make sure their bills are paid. They want to make sure that they didn't owe the state of Florida for a toll or whatever. You know, they want to make sure these things are settled. And that's what they're preying on. So, who else has something they want to add? I wanted to, you know, I've seen a few things on here. I know we did, for those of you who went to Marcone convention, Frank Abagnale. He did speak there. I know a lot of us saw him. He's the reason I'm not using my debit card anymore. He really had, I was trying to cut it up under the table at the conference because he scared me so bad. So he's the reason I'm not doing that. If you have not seen him lecture, and you have the opportunity, I completely endorse it. I know, Rob, you were there, you saw him. Stuart, you saw him, Jack. And if you have the opportunity, by all means, I'm sure they'll endorse it too, because it was really eye-opening, the many ways that people can take advantage of an opportunity that's just normal doing business, just a normal day at the office. Yeah, Bobby brought up the I hope I'm saying his name right. Abagnale.
Frank Abagnale. Yeah, you could go on YouTube. A lot of his presentations are on YouTube as well, so you can
Good.
go on
Yeah.
there. Very good.
It was extremely beneficial. You know, and even with the stuff that I had seen and knew went on, he presented some stuff that's really new. The level of technology that's being used right now to defraud people. Several years ago, most of you know I'm in North Carolina, but several years ago, the FBI busted a ring in Raleigh, which is our state capital, and they probably had 20, they said they had 20 or 24 people working in a home who were full-time fraud people, full-time employed to commit fraud. And they had, they said thousands of bank account numbers that they had collected, thousands of credit card numbers that they had collected. And I mean, it's a business, guys. I mean, it's not even a joke anymore or just something that somebody did to, you know, steal some money from grandma. This is a business, and it is lucrative for those who are good at it. So I'd love to talk about this more. I think it might be something I try to do with ASTI this year, because I think it's a great topic for conversation. And if you walk away with a little bit of fear, good. Because that's the idea. If you're going to be scared of anything, be scared of what somebody will do to you, not what they're lying to you about. You know, take that away from it. Debbie?
Thank y'all for coming. I hope you got something out of it from the bad things that have happened to us. Hope it doesn't happen to you. I just want to share everything. When I see something, I say something. I want everyone to know I had no idea I could have bought a little card and prevented, you know, the hassle I had to go through. It was all insured by the FDIC and I got all my money back, but it was a hassle and I don't want anyone else to go through it. So, you know, I try to share all of the bad things that happen with as many people because I don't want it to happen to you. So anyway, I hope everybody enjoyed it. I hope y'all have a wonderful week and thank you for showing up. And if you have any ideas for these in the future, we would love to hear from you. So that
If you
we
would
can
like to host, if you want to host one of these, if you've got an idea, we would love to hear it. Then we need people to host these all the time. So just send me a message or put it in the chat, and then we'll get you on the schedule. All right.
And there's some interesting things in our chat too, a couple of links that I hope now you're not scared to click on, but they're there. For LifeLock, I saw in Norton, and there's some different things out there that certainly I would say just look at protecting yourself, you know. Look into your government agencies too, because I'm surprised to know and found out recently that they have ways that they can alert you if somebody is trying to look into your will or copy a will in your name or post a deed for your home. If they're trying to get into that information that you have established with your county or with your state, They have ways of alerting you to that activity before it happens. So make sure you ask your own government agencies what can be done to protect my privacy and my security around these things that you have on file here. Because we see a lot of information about people compromising your deed to your home and getting loans based on your deed to your home and stuff like that. But some of our government agencies have stepped up, so explore that a little bit too. And yes, thank you so much for coming, guys. We really appreciate it.
Right.
Have a great day.
Today. Thanks.
See y'all later.
Thanks, Bob.